Shaun, owner, founder, race director of Ultra Series SA. How you going? Or Ultra Series Australia, I should say.
Yeah, Ultra Series SA, Ultra Series WA, and Ultra Series Australia. But now we're mainly just Ultra Series. I guess it's just
Yeah,
merged into that. So yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, going good.
Good.
Going good.
So you brought the first point-to-point 200-mile race to the Southern Hemisphere. Is that correct?
That is exactly correct. Yeah, yeah. I guess Australia was wanted. I don't know. I was really into the long stuff with trail running, and it all started at 5K, like the story does for so many people. Yeah, did 5K, and then went up from there and kept wanting more and kept wanting more, and then was following some of the 200 milers over in America with quite a bit of interest, and thought that we could do something like that here in Australia, and I just didn't want to jump into that directly, so I ended up entered Tahoe 200 miler over in the US back in, I think, back 2017, just because I wanted to go and experience it for myself before we looked at bringing something here. But also had a pretty good idea that you needed a fair few people around you to be able to pull something like that together. So yeah, I guess we, on the back of what we thought was going to be a point-to-point 200 miler, we created Ultra Series WA as it was back then, and created a small collection of runners, and then eventually, well, not eventually, I guess organically, a community came with it from there, and then it just evolved into something
Exploded.
way bigger I ever could have, and it was all off the back
Yeah.
of I guess wanting to do a 200 miler here in Australia.
So I want to hear more about your experience doing the 200 in Tahoe. What was that like?
Oh, insane! I'll remember it forever. I will remember it forever, and I can, like, in a blink of an eye, I can be back there instantly. And I guess, look, the number one thing which I enjoyed most about that event was that my mum and my dad and my auntie and my old neighbour from the farm in South Australia, they came over and crewed for us. So I had four of them crew, and off the back of that, mum and dad then became involved in every single 200 miler we had in Australia. And my auntie was our head medic for so many years for the 200 milers that we had. And, that all just kind of stemmed off the back of Tahoe 200 miler. And yeah, that was, the first, the first thing I always reflect on, in particular with my dad. My dad and I are very close, and we ended up, getting up to quite a few shenanigans in that three weeks that we were over at Tahoe. And, it was just good fun. It was a really amazing adventure that we got to share together, and then for the week of the event and a little bit after with my mum and auntie and friend. But the event itself, look, I went in with no, I guess, goal other than just to finish it, and went over with some mates as well. There was, I think, 4 West Aussies went over, and then 4 other Australians went over, and we all caught up at the start line, and a lot of us all ran together during the event. And out of the 8 Aussies, there was 1 DNF, and the other 7 of us finished, and I was the slowest of them, and I finished in 33rd out of 200 starters. So the Aussies there kicked ass. It was bloody awesome. I think we finished between 12th and 33rd between all of us. And I don't know, it was wicked. It was just an amazing, I don't know, it really sucked me into what an adventure you could really make of these long runs. I remember one time running with a mate from Perth, Dave, and I said, oh, look, you go ahead. We ended up doing about 170 miles together, I think, out of the 200. It was actually about a 214-mile course, and we did about 170 together. And through, I'll say, the second or the third night, I said, look, you go ahead. I'm just going to stop and have a quick pee. So I stepped off to the trail and looked to the left, and with my head torch, went to go and have a whiz, and looked straight ahead of me, and there was a bloody mountain lion with its cub about, I don't know, maybe 50 feet away, just like looking at me with its eyes. But it was sleep, like I could tell it was sleepy. I'd obviously woken it up from disturbing it. And I just looked over and went, holy crap, like I realised, we really are in the wild out here, and quickly zipped my fly up and realised I actually wasn't that desperate to go for a whiz, and just ran the fastest bloody K to catch up with Dave that I had. And I just said, yeah, I'm not actually needing to go for a pee anymore. Let's not stop, because we just want to keep running, and told him why. And so, yeah, we ended up bolting, I think, the next 3 or 4K just to make sure that we were
Gave you some
not going to
energy.
get into some trouble. So, And then that, like, within a few hours, sunrise was up, and then we had this bloody bear right in front of us on the trail. And it was just
Oh,
so
really?
surreal. Yeah, it was a black bear. So the black bears over there
Yep.
are pretty timid and, not very aggressive or anything. So, but it was just, I don't know, it was unreal. Go across the other side of the world with some mates and just go and be part of something that's so, I don't know, it still doesn't seem real, even though it was. But it was just like you're just so immersed in this run that's just in the wilderness in mother. Like, I'm such a passionate lover of Mother Nature and obviously doing some pretty wild and wonderful things. And Tahoe 200 miler was just something amazing. So,
So, what was the longest distance you'd done before that, and like how much of a difference was it the jump? I guess.
I've done Coast to Cozzy 240k, and that, mind you, most of that's road. So definitely on the trail, this was way more intense. I think it had like about 14,000 meters of vert over the
Oh
340k.
God.
So it was 100k longer than I'd ever run before, and
Yeah.
and all so much single track and trail and fire
Yeah.
trail. So yeah, it was longer, but I guess there wasn't. I mean, there was a cutoff, but that was never really in the equation. I knew if we just keep moving forward, and I didn't really have any strategies or anything like that, I suppose, apart from just keeping up the fueling and have breaks where you could. And I'm a bit out of practice now, but I certainly know that the next one that I was going to do, I would have done it with less strategy, more just go with the flow, if you get what I mean. Just
Mm.
yeah, just because I think with Tahoe, I tried to set sleep times, and I was going to get to this point and have a sleep here and have 3 hours there but because you're so wired and you obviously chuck a fair bit of caffeine through to you in gels and whatever else that you have, and you're buzzing as well. You're just so caught up with the event that at that time I just couldn't switch off and actually get much sleep at all. And it wasn't until the final night where I said to Dave, I said, look, I'm just not going to set an alarm. I'm going to go to sleep. And if in 7 or 8 or 9 hours I'm not awake, then I'll get my folks to wake us up and then I'll continue on. But you go ahead because you get up and set as per your schedule and away you go. And because of that, I ended up being able to, just relax. And I
Mm.
slept so bloody heavy and I ended up waking up at the time that I was wanting to wake up anyway, or that I would have planned to wake up, but I'd gone. I just allowed the mind to just relax and just go into a really deep, heavy sleep, and really soaked up that final day. And I remember, so I was listening to Disclosure. This was 2017. I was listening from the very last aid station. I was listening to Disclosure on the whole album. I can't remember what the album was called back then, but every time I hear that any song from that album now, it just takes me straight there. So, and I remember with about 6 miles to go, I think it was. So I finished at a ski resort, but it was in September, so there was a little bit of snow up the top, but not much. And as we're up the top of where the runs are and the chairlifts and that, we're about, I think, 6 miles to go. And I ran past this little random tray of shot glasses, and I think it was tequila. Yeah, it was tequila. Shot
Oh
glasses and
fuck.
tequila on this tray. And it said, there was a little whiteboard that said, look, stop and have one of these, have a shot of this, and just reflect on what you've done because you deserve this because you've done it, just your moment to reflect. And I'm like, nah, that's the last thing that I
I could
feel
think of
like
anything
doing. So
worse. That's
oh,
horrible.
I ended up running about 20 meters past it. And I'm like, if I don't do this, I'm forever going to regret not embracing that moment and reflecting on exactly what that shot was there for. And it had nothing to do with the tequila or the shot or having a drink or anything like that. It was more about stopping and reflecting and being in the moment and just realize that you've done this. Like you are gonna be a 200-mile finisher. And as far as my running career goes or adventure, that was absolutely going to be the pinnacle. At that moment, the greatest running achievement I think I would have ever done. And so I ended up turning back and I ran back to it. And the shot glasses were filthy because it was probably 10 shot glasses, and obviously 30 people had already been through and had one before me. And but I didn't care. And I just had and it just filled me with so much warmth inside. It was actually, to be honest, it was magnificent, which is way more than what I thought it was going to be. And I just flew home. I absolutely flew home because I just spent, maybe 60 seconds. It probably felt like 5 minutes, but I just spent that time just being there and being really present and in the moment. And before I knew it, it was time to keep moving. But again, there's that shot glass, there's the bear, there's the mountain lion, there's, the sleep deprivation, there's mum and dad and my auntie. And there's just these moments that I remember. A lot of the rest is the blur. But there's just those pivotal moments that I take out of it and just remember that this was a platform that was put out there by Candace over in the States, who created these adventures. And it rolled into something that we now get to present here in Australia. So
Awesome. All right. So
yeah,
we've achieved what we were trying to achieve in this podcast. I was trying to inspire myself for the next adventure, and you've done that. So
that was quick.
yeah. I mean, like, how many hours on your feet, or how many hours out there is something like that?
I did it, I think, in about 81 hours, 80 hours, 80 and a half hours, 80 hours 30, I think it was.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
wild.
I don't even know. I guess that wasn't that wasn't my goal. I didn't have any targets apart from
Yeah,
finishing it.
yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely in the low 80s, somewhere around there. But there's plenty of time. The sleep monkeys, definitely. I just remember on that last night, because I just hadn't had any sleep for a couple of nights, and I tried and tried. I tried for about 7 hours, I think, to try and get sleep, even just a little bit, and just could not get any. And I know I was just quite frazzled, and coming into not the last aid station, but certainly the last night, one of the last main ones. I think it was about 30 mile to go. And I'm like, I just need to get some sleep to get this finished. And then I guess you get to some really dark places, and that was probably the darkest I've been. I knew I was still going to finish it, but you want to be able to enjoy it as well. And when you're just trying so hard and all you want is just get some sleep to reset, it was pretty good to, end up overcoming the challenges of forcing yourself to sleep, and then just actually getting to a point where you're just like, look, just relax. It doesn't matter what time you finish this thing, because you get a day and a half still to do 6 hours worth of work, or 12 hours work, whatever it was. I still had so much time. So just to overcome the way I was going about it, and completely switch around rather than forcing things and going, look, just go to sleep and relax. And in the end, that was the solution to get to the finish line with just a huge smile on my face. And it was epic. Like, it was so, I don't know. I get a big smile just going back there and thinking it. And now, look, I can't imagine myself doing any. I'm sure maybe I'll go back and do them again. I've entered Bigfoot twice and couldn't go there for a couple of reasons. But, I reckon I might get back there. But I'm getting a buzz now out of, we're seeing so many Australians now come and be part of Delirious, and obviously all our other events that we do too. But now the shoe's on the other foot, and that's my smile. That's what fills my cup, I suppose, is being able to put on these events for people to come and do really stupid stuff, but in a controlled manner.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of hype behind Delirious now, but that first year, that must have been. Was there a fear that there wouldn't actually be demand for something like this in Australia? Like, how many entrants did you get the first year?
I don't think I ever had that fear that there wasn't going to be that demand. And in fact, I was so confident that we ended up putting on a trilogy of them. So, which in hindsight, I probably should have waited, or maybe I thought the demand was going to be bigger than what it is, but realised that our demographics here in Australia is quite a bit smaller, and travel, and obviously COVID didn't help that side of things. But look, in the first year, I think we had maybe 39 or 36 starters, which was, I guess, probably about roughly where we were looking at or thinking we would get. The next year, I reckon it went up to, the next year jumped heaps, but it was COVID. So we ended up only getting, I think, 36 starters again that year, but we had something like 90 odd sign-ups. The following year, we had about 109 sign-up. But again, we could only get, I think we had 54 runners in 2021, just because, again, the WA borders were so closed. So it's really only been now, last year, or this year, sorry, and next year, where we're considering, consistently hitting, I think last year we had 136 or 137 starters or something. And look, we're nearly at that already for 2026. And obviously we've got 9 or 10 months worth of entries still to come. So it's looking close to being a sellout at 200 runners this year. That's the 100 and 200 miler combined, and we get a pretty even split of 50-50 with them now. So, but yeah, look, the first year was a massive plunge for us to dive into something like this, because it was mainly the logistics of the whole event, and we all just did so much, and I want to say ran ourselves into the ground. We were 9 years or 8 years younger back then, or however long it was, 2019, so 7 years younger back then, and certainly just going to do whatever it took to get it off the ground and make it happen. And look, we did things a lot harder than what we realised. We could have made things easier on ourselves, but we were none the wiser. No one had ever done this in, like you said, in the Southern Hemisphere, and setting up a 200 miler point to point was just so much harder than doing a loop race or doing an out and back or anything like that. So, and yeah, we did massive hours. We had less sleep than a lot of the runners did, and we had, I think we had 2 RDs, race directors then, which were race directors, race controls, just, we did the whole show, whereas now we have a team of about 8 of us with race control, race directors, and we have some logistics teams. We've got a full medical team. There's generally in excess of 100 odd volunteers and event staff that are part of this, when, you almost got 1-for-1 volunteer for runner, out there, and then you got a whole heap of crew on top of that. So, for let's say this year we have 180, 170 runners, we'll have crews and volunteers and support staff around that of probably close to 300. So, it's a massive logistical thing that comes together to get around these events. But look, it is absolutely life-changing for every single person that's involved. And that's what I found so infectious with Tahoe. And even though they're a lot bigger than what we do it, and maybe I'm biased, but I really love the way Delirious is quite intimate. And look, it is certainly bigger now than what it was originally, but it's just such a tight community, and everyone really, really looks out for everyone out there. Whereas I guess with Tahoe, maybe, don't get me wrong, the volunteers and that were amazing, but we didn't really interact with too many other crews or runners, or, we did with a couple, but it was mainly, we just looked after our Aussies and, just kind of looked after each other in that sense.
How many people do Tahoe?
I think about 250, and that's only in the 200 miler. So it's it's massive, absolutely massive. So, and, I know 250 doesn't sound like a lot of runners in a trail event, but for 200 mile, they're all entered that 200 mile. I'd hate to have that. I don't think Delirious could ever get that big, because I don't think I'd ever want to take that on. Like 250 runners on 200 miles on a point to point is just, that'd be
logistical
unenjoyable
nightmare.
Almost, I think. Yeah. But, Candace does it well. She's got a massive team, and the demand and the demographics over there are, there's just so many more people to cater for it. So, I don't know. I love what Delirious gives, and I love how everyone that's involved in Delirious is so immersed in it. They're in it to do whatever they can to get their runner, or to get their mate's runner, or to get the runner that's coming in from the last aid station on to the next aid station. So, it's a really special community to be involved in, and what a privilege that that I get to steer the ship for it.
Yeah. So it's an interesting location, I guess. It's fairly remote. How did you choose the location for the initial event?
Look, the Bibbulmun track came to light from, we do the Feral Pig Ultra on the Bibbulmun track, and
that's up near Perth.
That's right at the other end of the Bibbulmun track. So,
and it goes all the way down, does it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's 1,000 K. So, and we're a silver sponsor of the Bibbulmun Track Foundation, so we have a great rapport with them. And although initially it took a little bit for us to convince parks and water board and whatnot that trail running wasn't going away, and the community was only going to get bigger and bigger, and that this sport is just getting ginormous, and you really need to embrace the trail running community, because they're a great bunch of people, and and we can all work together for a great outcome. And once we get our foot in the door with the Feral Pig Ultra, then we realised that the Bib track was just an amazing location to put it on, and putting it down south was going to be a lot fewer road crossings, and it also gave us the opportunity to invest in regional WA. You know, North, we literally double the population of Northcliffe overnight when we go down there for the event. Got a
Yep.
population, I think, of like 300 odd people. And that's about how many are there on day one for the 200 miler when you got crews and runners and support staff and whatnot all down there. And you know, as we progress and go along, the same with Walpole. Walpole always have a tremendous bump a couple of days when we come through. And you know, the IGA, the IGA at Walpole, they've even been in touch with them and said, look, we live around the corner. If you're cruising that come through in the middle of the night and need something, just let us know and we'll come and open up the store for you, and you know, make sure you can get your batteries or get your supplies or stuff like that, because that, you know, same thing, they just do so well when we come through. So yeah, it was just the opportunity to invest in regional. I'm a country boy from South Australia, and I love embracing the importance of trying to bring events to the regions. And look, it's stunning down there. It is incredible.
Wow.
We went down and did some runs down there. And I'm like, yeah, this is it. This is the place. You know, we got jet ski crossings. We got we did have kayak crossings, which have been replaced by jet ski crossings. We now, you know, that's part of the event. You literally
How does
jump
that
on a jet
work?
ski to cross an inlet. Well, you run once you leave Peaceful Bay, you run along the beach down to an inlet.
Yep.
We used to do kayaks initially, but once the numbers outgrew the kayaks, we're like, what can we do to make this better? And we're like, let's do jet skis. So you jump on a jet ski and you get, you know, ridden across the inlet to the other side at the mouth,
So how many
and
jet skis
continue
you
on the
got?
trail from there. We have two. So,
Yep.
but it's only a couple of minute ride kind of thing. So, and they just go back and forth for about a 30-hour window, and it's cool. Like it's wicked. You got to pay the ferry master. So
Yep.
the jet ski operator down there, he's the ferry master. So everyone has to bring something from their hometown to pay the ferry master, and you gift that item. So there's been bottles of vodka and gin. There's been a cactus.
Yeah.
You know, and they have to carry this down to the ferry master, whether they carry it from the start or whether they carry it from the Peaceful Bay aid station, which is the previous aid station about 4K back.
Yeah.
They gotta carry it to pay the ferrymaster. If you don't pay the ferrymaster, you don't get to the other side. So yeah, there's also, when you get to Denmark, we have a shuttle there, and the shuttle is we have a couple of 12-seater buses. You got to be on that shuttle, and it leaves on the hour every hour, and it's about a 35-minute ride around to the other side, to where the track on the Biberman track, to where we drive you around the inlet, Wilson Inlet. So rather than doing a water crossing or anything like that, just to mix it up a little bit, we drive you around the other side to the other side of the inlet. But it's a race, because if you're not there on the hour, you got to wait another full hour, or you got to wait till the next hour to get onto the next shuttle. So you know, it can be it's wicked. It absolutely cooks people, or you know, it wins them the race. So we had a one guy, or there was a group of three this year in the 100 miler. They were racing to get to that, I don't even know what time, but that on the hour shuttle. And one of the guys, he said, look, I just cooked myself trying to make it to that shuttle. We got there, we all got on it, but once he got to the other side, he was just baked and ended up
Oh.
withdrawing. You know, he was just cramping up, and
Oh
you know,
wow.
and it's part of the strategy of this event. It's different. Look, it is. I don't know. It's just a really interesting event, which has a few different things thrown into it to
Yeah.
add to what it
Well,
is. You know,
I
and
saw. I mean, I watched a few videos. I saw beaches, skywalks. Like, but
yep,
it just
yeah, the
seems like.
treetop walk at Valley of the Giants. So
Mm,
that unfortunately isn't going to be in this year, because where the event sits right in the middle of school holidays, and they're already really busy with and the event we've just outgrown it a bit. Now we're still going through the Valley of the Giants area, but we're just not going to include that treetop walk, unfortunately, moving forward, just because of we've gone up about 40% last year in numbers, and we're up similar numbers again this year. So yeah, we're just got to adapt and evolve a little bit with the numbers as you know, as we get closer to capacity. So, but you know, the crews and everything like that, the aid station is right near it, so the crews and that there are will still get to go and be part of the treetop walk.
yep. So, was there like a specific experience you were trying to create or you had in mind when you were trying to build this race?
Well, that's a good question, I guess. I don't know. Something with Ultra Series is that we've always we've always wanted to have a really beautiful culture and a really pure and genuine mutual respect of everyone of all abilities. And as much as I love watching the people at the front of the field, race each other, but that's only about 5% of the field. I really admire the people at the back that are taking, that are giving absolutely everything they got to get to the finish line. And we have a trophy that's called the DFL trophy, so the dead fucking last. And we give that to the last runner who's been out there the longest. And it's just as unique and big usually as the winning trophy, because that's real admiration and respect for pushing longer than anyone else has pushed to get to that finish line. And I think if you just have the right people around you in a community that have got so much gratitude for being out there in Mother Nature, when she's Mother Nature's bloody amazing. And look, the southwest of WA is one of her little treats that she has put together, and we get to run in in the most incredible of places. And I think with that being the footprint that we get to utilize for this event, and then putting the community together behind it, it was going to create its own really special place in the ultra community. And I guess putting two and two together, putting those two together, I knew Delirious was always going to be something really, really special. And it is, like it is to me personally. It is to so many people personally. We've had, relationships created on the Delirious course. A couple of runners. I know of two couples that are married that met at Delirious.
Oh.
I personally got engaged at the finish line of Delirious. Our little baby girl was due on the weekend of Delirious, and her middle name's Delilah, because that was the closest
That's awesome.
name we could come to Delirious. And it's got so much. I don't know. I can't put it into words why this event is what it is. And it's just, people come from everywhere. We've got people coming from Europe next year to come and run it. We've had people from America, from Canada, from Malaysia, from Scotland, from Czech Republic, from Norway, Finland. We've had people from everywhere just come to be part of this, because it's a hard course. And look, it doesn't have the vert of what most 200 milers have, but it's got sand, it's got dunes, it's got...
What is the vert?
It's got heat.
What is the vert of the 200 miler? Do you know?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was only like 6,000 or 7,000. I don't even know if it's that much. But it's not. Yeah, it's not really the vert that gets you. It's the sand dunes is probably the hardest. Okay. The sand dunes, and it has been brutal. The heat. The heat normally on day one is a killer, because day one, where you're running from Northcliffe down to Walpole, is the only part that's not really by the beach. So it doesn't have the sea breeze or anything like that, and it's usually the hottest day, and it will be the same again this year, and it will be next year, but we've moved it to April now from February, so it is going to be a little bit more comfortable in April, certainly, to run than what it is in February. But, that catches people out too, especially people that come from the Northern Hemisphere.
Colder climates,
day one, they're coming. They're coming from their winter, they're coming to our summer, and it absolutely kicks them in the ass. So, but
it's interesting what you were saying about the DFL, right? Like I did the Bustleton Ironman last year, and I spoke to a bunch of people who've done Ironmans and stuff, and they say like the people that smash it and like win or whatever in quick time, like that's exciting. But if you go to an hour before cutoff and hang for that last hour, everyone's emotional and crying, and it's just like that's real special, watching people that are just like have battled the whole day and just pushed through to the very end. So
finished this year, our last runners that came through actually came in after cutoff, and it was the mother and daughter duo of Sue Robertson and Bianca Harding, and this was Sue's last ever 200 miler. She'd be late 60s, maybe in her 70s. Wow. I don't know if she's actually quite that old, but she's definitely late 60s at least. And she was coming in, leaning over and sideways, and she made it everywhere under cutoff except for the finish line. But they came in, I think, about 28 minutes after cutoff, and we still presented her with her trophy, which was a double. Like she'd already done the 200 miler there before. She was coming back to get the double plugger, so the second plugger. So your trophy in your first year when you finish it is like a $3 left plugger, like an Australian, thong, left.
Yep.
It's the left thong, and you got to come back and get the right thong if you want to get the proper trophy. So we then have a laser, nice timber trophy with the right plugger, the matching
Yep.
right plugger when you come back and do it the second time. So she was
Yeah.
coming. So we still presented her with that because, she'd still run 200 miles. And even though, she's got an asterisk by her name stating that it was after official cutoff, we still celebrated the fact that she's run another 200 miles and, she's done all 3 200-milers that we had out there. And, you got to celebrate these people just giving absolutely everything. And how honoured do you think I was and all the event team were at that finish line to cheer on someone who is just strove bloody hard to that finish line and I guess in their way honour us as well in putting this on and still being out there. And the finish line was amazing. It was a mess. It was rainy, it was muddy, we're all crying, we're all celebrating, the champagne came out, the arms were up for everyone to walk through the archway and it was just, they're awesome. Those moments that you realise, that it's those things that make these events. It's the people. It's, it's like I said, it's Mother Nature, but it's also the people that come together to celebrate and do what they can.
Yeah, it's amazing.
The 200-miler point to point is so different to any other event you would ever have been involved in because every single person that is out there, I've said earlier, there's probably going to be 300 odd people up outside of the runners at the 2026 edition. And every one of those people are going to be doing whatever they can to get you onto the next aid station, and then those people at the next aid station are going to do what they can to get you to the next one. It's not looking at getting you to the finish line. It's just do their part to get you to the next aid station and get you to the next aid station. And then, before you know it, the finish line will be there. But, it's that whole adventure along the way and all those people invested so much. Like you'll make lifelong friendships, which I have, particularly out of Tahoe and obviously out of Delirious. You make lifelong friendships with people that you'd never met before that week. And yet by the end of it, that forever you're going to be in touch with them and stay in touch and always, share this adventure for starters and then very likely some more adventures moving forward.
Amazing. Yeah, I think I've got to do it. So I guess you've been doing this for about 10 years now and I think you've built somewhat of a ultra running empire, you could say. How have you seen the sport kind of explode in popularity? Do you think it's grown significantly in the last 10 years and is it still growing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we had 3 events in the first, a mate had 1 event and then we did 3 and we, kind of joined them together under Ultra Series. And then, that was 3 events in a year. And then I think the next year it went up to 5 events. And now, like next year, we'll have 16 events across Victoria, SA and WA. And they're all incredibly well received. I guess our market that we sit in has always been targeted at like that 50K and above. 50K is really our shortest event. And, obviously we do a lot of the longer stuff. And, even the market where we are, we've gone from, Light Horse, which we had just on the weekend, I think in the first year had like 85 runners and it had 300 on the weekend. Now, I know that's not massive for what a lot of the events out there are. Some of your big name events are, you got 1,500 or 1,600 or, obviously, and then UTA has got astronomical numbers. But I'm really comfy with where we sit in the market. We're really, I always try and make sure we present ourselves as a community rather than a corporation. And I guess in that sense, the staff that we've got on now very much have that drilled into them. And we're just all very honoured to have a part in creating adventures for people out there. Each one of our events is certainly individual and different, and they all have their own websites, and they all we don't necessarily suggest you do one event, you got to come and do another event, or they're all individual events on their own and they're all in unique locations, I guess. But I don't know, I really love our audience. I love the people that come and get involved. It's definitely evolved a lot more than what it was originally. 10 years ago, we had, the same kind of 80 people come and do all 4 of our events. Now we have, you got a Herdies as an example. Herdies is one of the biggest backyards in the world. In fact, this year, for the third or fourth year in a row, it was the biggest in the world, but Sydney's now beaten it. And you go there, and that there is actually quite a different demographic to what we normally have at our trail running events, because that's got a lot more triathletes and a lot more road runners at it, and probably less of the OG community, because it's a different vibe, and that's like a big bloody rave and an energy, and it's electric. It's so different again to it's chalk and cheese what that event is to what Delirious is, but it's just got such a beautiful special place in the market, which again so many people talk about because it has its own identity, and it's it's pumping, and it's, I don't know, it's another, I love every one of our events, otherwise we wouldn't do them, and if there's an event that isn't presenting like it should be, well then we'll change it or move it or tweak it, or if we have to shut it down or whatever. But yeah, I don't know, I think as long as we keep learning and growing in a good way, like I know it sounds funny, but we don't look, we are an entity, we're a company, but we actually don't have a bottom line budget. Like, we don't have a profit and loss budget. We just have a bit of a revenue budget, because we know with how we're set up that our bottom line is gonna at least cover our costs, etc. We get a wage out of it, but then everything else we make on top of that goes back into it. We get we always try and get new and better equipment, and better timing clocks, and more gazebos and branded, and more fencing and safety and more equipment. And our next investment's actually 2 kind of ambulance like vehicles. We want to get some 4-wheel drive ambulances, or not actual ambulances, but first aid vehicles, and just that sort of stuff is what we're always just trying to put back into the community, because the community supports us so much that you just keep evolving, and I think that's why we keep growing, and we keep progressing, I guess, from there. So
you're right. I was just going to ask, I mean, you've got a shitload of events on now. Like, I was going through it all before we started the chat, and you've got a serious amount of events. Do you plan on continuing to add more to the list?
Look, we're gonna have 8 based out of and then we'll have 8 based out of SA/Victoria. So we have a depot in Adelaide, and we have a depot in Perth. We have an office in Adelaide, and obviously one in Perth, and that'll pretty much be it. That'll be our 16 events for the year. I've realised now that I can't quite be at all of them, as much as I've loved that. It's just killing me and my family life in being away so much. But we've worked out some strategies to and got amazing people around us on the team, and also volunteers that are part of the future of what we're doing. But I really, I don't plan on expanding or anything like that, in the future as such. I just want to get better at what we're doing. So, I still think we have some voids in our events, and we certainly have some events which we have massive plans for, that I think could be, we already have some world stage events for our little niche audience, so to speak. We like Delirious and Herdies, and No Time to Die is coming that way, and I know Melbourne Frontyard will as well. But
is there a difference between a front yard and a backyard ultra?
No, that was just our smart ass play on words, because a front yard, we interpreted that a front yard was going to be in like the city centre of of these metro areas. So Herdies front yards, right in the heart of Perth. No Time to Die front yard is right in the heart of Adelaide, and Melbourne front yard again is right in the heart of Melbourne City. So whereas our backyards are more the ones that out the back of yonder. Birdie's backyard's out regional, and the same with Wild Dog. So yeah, we I guess we just want to keep improving, keep getting better equipment, and offering a better service. And we've put on three more staff in the last couple of months just to refine what we're doing and be better. But yeah, well, I don't know. I don't have any end line and goal ever with Ultra Series. I'm sure at some stage there will be. Something will come up, and I love it still. Yeah, it burns me to the ground every now and then. I have to reset, and about 3 weeks ago, I just had to take a week off because it had 6 or 7 months. This year's been hectic. Not in a bad way. It's obviously good. But that's also why we have more staff come on, just to try and keep up with the demand. And I guess I'm good at realising when I get close to burnout, and there's always people that step up to the plate around me, and I've got better at releasing the reins a bit, I suppose, to those around us, and trust. I've always been, I guess, a bit protective on what the Ultra Series brand is, so to speak, in making sure that, you know, we kept the heart and soul of why we do this.
So what is that?
And
What is the why? What is the heart and soul?
I guess that's why, because life can be really short. We've lost some really good people in our community, you know, quickly. We had one of the RDs for Delirious, Jeff. He lost his battle with cancer in 11 days of getting diagnosed. And it's, you know, I guess life is about creating opportunity and making the most of opportunities. And if we're there to create the opportunities, then people can make the most of them. And you know, and I want our events to be really special and be an adventure, you know, be something that people go home with and just go, wow, that was very potentially life-changing, which I know I get that out of Delirious. I know we get that, but I want to do that with our shorter stuff as well. I want people talking about our events and just going, wow, this thing that they did at the event was just so incredible. Or this, you know, the finish line hugs, were something we're famous for. And I love that. I love giving a big bear hug at the end, because that's celebrating someone achieving something that they potentially didn't think they were capable of. And, you know, I just want to make sure that we're providing the platform and the people and the community to help create or bring these adventures to life. And that's our heart and soul. I don't want to be getting lost in, you know, oh, we've got to achieve this bottom line budget, or, you know, we've got to hit this target for that, because we've got to have such and such a figure to make sure that our investors or our sponsors or whatnot are happy. And look, we're pretty picky with our sponsors. We don't do a lot with sponsorship, where we try to be self-sufficient as much as we can, for that very reason, that the only real sponsors I want on board are those that support us and back us for what our philosophies are, and that is, you know, about being a community and working together to achieve a pretty awesome achievement, and realize that we're all far more capable of doing stuff that we didn't necessarily think we could do.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we wrap up, I just wanted to talk about, backyard, front yard, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's a pretty wild concept. And I think the first time I heard about it, I was like, what the fuck? What is that? But it tends to be getting more and more popular. Have you seen that kind of explode in popularity?
Massively.
Yeah.
Absolutely massively. Yeah. What a wild format. Every hour on the hour, everyone comes back together and is equal. You know, and that's what I love about it. You know, you're standing on that start line, and if you're there, you're equal first with everyone else that's there. And you got, you know, the world's best there, or some of the world's best, and there's you there just having a crack. And the beauty of Backyard Ultras is you only need to do 6.71K on the hour, every hour, and you can run it. You know, you don't need to be the fastest to be able to do that. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's a ridiculously crazy format that is so embracing of all abilities, and that is what the major attraction of it is. You don't have to be a speedster like Rob Parsons. Obviously, we all know Phil and, you know, and Sam and whatnot, but Rob Parsons, he's a runner we've had here in WA. He's moved to Adelaide now. He's I think 17th in the world, and he averages 53-minute laps. And he's a truck, mate. He's a unit. He's solid. He's a ex-rugby player, and, you know, he's built like a bloody tank. And he just trots around, and he's just got his power nap and down to a fine tune, because he only gets a couple of minutes to power nap when he wants to have a sleep.
He does sleep. He does sleep.
Oh, you have to. You can't do 86 hours or whatever he did
without having doing 86 hours.
Yeah, without having a nap. So
that's
yeah, you
wild.
know, it's just, but that's, you know, that's so different to then Phil, who can go and do a 33-minute, you know, 119th hour lap. So
yeah. So what are the what are the largest numbers you're seeing in these Backyard Ultras?
We had 427 start Hurdy's front yard this year, which is, that at the time was the biggest, but I think Sydney now had 486. So, and that, look, wow. we had, I think, 503 or 506 sign-ups to Hurdy. Just had lots of people just no show or you know, had changes. and couldn't get there for Herdies. And look, I think we're pretty much at capacity of what that's capable of, because you've got to have the right course and a nice wide area, and you're going to be able to feed and funnel all those people through, because you can't have people struggling to, take 2 minutes to get over the start line, because that's 2 minutes out of their hour that they're looking for. So, but yeah, look, we then though had probably 11 or 1200 spectators at the start line every hour. That just created just such a carnival atmosphere. It was insane. It was so and Herdies is different. It is just so special. It's just, I don't know. It's insane. It's
and how long do these races go for?
Energy. I think the record at Herdies is about 57 hours or 58 hours. So, which it isn't necessarily the longest one that we have. Actually, 59 is what our record's been for there. Yeah, I guess it's not the longest course out there. I think our Melbourne Frontyard Ultra is going to be the best course we're going along. And sure enough, this year in our first year, we were at 58 hours. So, that's just got a bit more variation, and it's a bit kinder on the body. So I think that'll be our one that can, runners could go to 100 hours if they want to. Whereas the Herdies one, it's pretty flat, and it's the same sort of conditions all the way around and pretty exposed. So, that's not necessarily going to be able to go as long, but people aren't there necessarily to go as long. They're there to go and give it a crack and be part of this party atmosphere. It's a party ultra. It is absolutely a party ultra. So, and the way we set up our front yards is kind of like that. Our No Time to Die is exploded. That's going to have 300 plus runners at this year. So, yeah, same thing. Just lots of high energy and atmosphere and food trucks and dance music going. So it's insane. I love it.
Yeah, amazing. All right, if anybody wants to find out more, where do you want to point them? Just
to ultraseries.com.au. Yep. Yeah, if you just do a search on Ultra Series, all the events are there. Yeah, they all have individual websites, but that ultraseries.com.au will guide you and steer you down whatever channels you want to go from there, and give you a bit of an overview on what it is that we've got on offer.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Love what you're doing. Love your passion. Keep it up, man.
Thanks, Luke. And, thanks for looking us up and, being intrigued by what this sort of stuff is. And we'll see you in April by the sounds of it at Delirious start line.
Oh, yeah. Sounds good. Thanks, Shaun. Cheers, mate.